Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I am the host of this show. If you are new to this podcast, go check out some of our past interviews. We've got all kinds of great interviews with smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs of companies and organizations ranging from Netflix to Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard. Just did Quicken the other day, Lending Tree, OpenTable, and many more. And I'm also the co-founder of Rise25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And my guest here today is Andy Plank. He spent 25 years in the corporate world for Fortune 150 and Fortune 25 construction material companies. And then about 10 years ago, he got the inkling to go into the crazy world of becoming an entrepreneur. And so he started Blue Eagle Logistics in 2013, which moves freight important to people's lives. It's relevant today because everyone's talking about supply chain, how that's been disrupting everyone's lives. Actually, it's been a good thing for his business. So we're going to talk about that, but someone is benefiting from it. And so we'll talk about that. And then also his wife joined him in the business. So we'll talk about working with your spouse, how that affected things. And then also he and his wife, Tina, are active with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, having lost their youngest son, Samuel, about 4 years ago in 2018. So we're going to talk about that as well, and the good work that he does there. And Andy, I'm excited to have you here today. Of course, this episode, as always, brought to you by Rise25, where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. You can go to rise25.com to learn all about what we do there. Andy, thanks for having you here. And, it's funny, the book, the E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Oh God, I'm blanking on his name. The kind of like seminal book on small business entrepreneurship talks about the entrepreneurial seizure, where people like suddenly decide, I'm going to start a business. And right. For you, you got a little bit of a push out of the nest. So you'd been working your way up in the corporate world, and then the company you're working for was acquired, and the new company came in and said, we're clearing house, we're putting in all new management. So it kind of got a little bit of push out of the nest for you to get started. And you'd always thought about starting a company. And so you did.
Right. Yeah. We did get kicked out of the nest, and that was a good thing for us. It worked out well. It kind of, cut all the ties that you kind of can get trapped in the corporate world, thinking, oh, I can't give this up, I can't give that up, benefits, pension, whatever it is. And suddenly we found ourselves where all those ties were cut, and we had the freedom to figure out the next step in life. Yeah.
And now, did you know exactly what that company was going to look like? Had you thought about it before?
No, I probably took 6 to 9 months to figure out, what was best. I had a lot of people encourage me, well, look, you're great at sales and marketing. You should just go get another sales and marketing job. I basically reached out to my entire network of, friends, customers, colleagues, and just asked them, what do you think I should do? I had a background in logistics, through the construction materials world. It was always a big part of trying to satisfy and service your customers. So I knew it. My dad was also in the trucking business. From when I was a little kid, I used to spend Saturday mornings at the terminal with him while he's doing paperwork. I'm running around driving the mechanics crazy. So it was something I was somewhat familiar with. On a personal level and interested in, and then also just professionally, I had a lot of experience in it, and it just seemed like a fit that I understood and a fit that made sense.
Now, you said your dad was in the industry. Was your dad an entrepreneur? Had you thought about starting a company, or were you one of those types of kids that was out doing lemonade stands on your parents' lawn as a kid?
I did have a paper route, and I remember trying to ride my bike in a snowstorm once, which did not end well. And but no, we were. I mean, growing up where I did, my dad was a very hard worker, and he certainly, passed on the work ethic, to me. He worked for a company called Chemical Lehman Tank Lines, which was a dry bulk company, and they hauled acids and food grade materials and stuff like that around Pennsylvania. So he started with them washing trucks and worked his way up to dispatch and regional manager and regional sales manager. So that was my exposure. And then during high school, when they couldn't find somebody to cover the graveyard shift and dispatch, I put my hand up and said, well, I'll do that. And
in high school. So you're going out, you go to high school during the day and then go out at night and go drive a truck.
No. I worked in the dispatch office.
Okay. Answering the phone.
On the weekends. Yeah. Okay. Answering the phone. Somebody truck driver breaks down. You have to get a tow truck or, whatever. The customer's not there, or a last minute load would come in. You figure it out.
That takes some entrepreneurial gumption though in high school. I mean, I know I prize my sleep, and I did even more so when I was in high school. So I don't know that I would summon myself to go work at dad's office at midnight on a Friday night in high school.
Yeah, it was it was a lot of fun. I did enjoy the figure it out part, I think that's a big part of being an entrepreneur is you're throwing all these crazy problems, whether it's an HR problem, a finance problem, a marketing problem, and it's it's especially when you're getting started. And I've always enjoyed being stretched in that regard. Okay, well, what's the best way to do this? Who can I talk to learn from about how to do it?
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed being stretched.
Now, your wife had been a homemaker. And at what point did you come to her and say, hey, I got an idea. I'm going to start my own company and I want you to join me. What was that conversation like?
She knew I was looking to do this. And that was a very emotional day. She just said, I trust you and I know it'll work. And that was some of the nicest words she ever said to me. So I remember I think I had tears in my eyes when she said, yes, let's give this a try. So
now one thing I've experienced personally is a lot of times if you're good at something, then the challenge is you need to spend a lot of your time, if you're building something new, outside of that comfort zone. Because you got to build all the systems and stuff like that. Yeah. And here you'd spent 25 years in sales and marketing. So talk a little bit about, as you're building the company, some of the challenges that you experienced having to, work beyond your comfort zone and build systems and operations in other areas.
Yeah, I think for me, the HR and the sales side, I mean, those are, I think, kind of culturally on one side of the spectrum. And where I struggled was with the operations and to a lesser degree the financial side, but the operations side. So I'm a sales guy. Hey, do what the customer wants. Do what the customer wants.
Right.
That's not a very efficient way to run a trucking company.
Drives operations crazy, right?
Yeah, it drives operations crazy. It increases your costs, and all of a sudden you're not left with very much profit at the end of the day. So. About 5 years ago, I got an operations guy to come in and focus on the operations, and then that allowed me to get back in my lane as far as I can really kick some butt with sales and marketing. And we launched a social media campaign. I was able to get out and see customers and build relationships. And since we started that in 2019, our growth has accelerated tremendously, both on the top line, but also more importantly on the bottom line, because we're operating so much more efficiently than I could ever, run the company. And that was hard. It was hard to say, gee, I'm I'm not very good at operating the company.
And did you bring in someone who could help advise you on those pieces?
Yes, yeah. I hired a gentleman, Tristan Lawrence, who's working here today, and he's got background in supply chain. That's what he went to. He's a financial guy. He went to school for supply chain, and he's been a very very solid addition to our company. And he's about systems and processes. Sales guys are about, make it happen.
Right. And allowed you to focus on your superpower, it sounded like.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Did you go through kind of figuring out, what your lane was, what your niche was, any of that kind of, figuring that over time?
Yeah, and I would say that's where EO helped me tremendously. Was my forum mates were able to help. They were like, Andy, you're really good sales and marketing. What are you doing? And they really kind of pushed me in that direction, and it's paid off tremendously.
Yeah. Now 2019, 2020 happens, the pandemic. How did that affect your business? Take me back to kind of the beginning of the pandemic. What were you thinking?
So I was scared and nervous, going into it. I came to work the next day, and we had a letter from Department of Homeland Security that said, "You will operate." And all of a sudden, I'm like, yes, because you're an essential business, so keep running. And
that must have been reassuring.
It was reassuring because surviving a shutdown would have been questionable and touch and go. Mm-hmm. And then PPP came along. That was a tremendous help. So we had about I can't remember the timeline. It seemed like it was mid-March. We had about an 8-week period where shipments just dropped. But by July 1st, we were back to our normal shipping levels. And so PPP allowed us to retain all our people because we were able to compensate them and retain them and not lose them. And then by July 1st, we were pretty much running back to normal. We did, everybody was going remote. The number of laptop computers that came through our building was mind-boggling because everybody was trying to get a laptop to work from home. We also did clinical trial medicines into the New York hospitals.
Wow.
We were running,
that must feel really meaningful.
Yeah.
It must have been kind of rewarding to think about that you're essential business and that you are serving this kind of critical role as the country is trying to, navigate its way through the pandemic. Yeah.
They were trying. I don't know what they were trying, but they were trying all kinds of things to figure out how to fight it, right? And so we played a part in helping to make that happen, and that was satisfying as well. And then because nobody was going on vacation and everybody's sitting at home, guess what? Everybody fixed up their backyard. We were delivering boatloads of patio furniture and big screen TVs. And, everybody took that vacation money and plowed it into their house. And, so by the end of the year, we were running at a record pace, and that continued through 2021.
Now, a lot of companies are having trouble with hiring, recruiting, getting workers. Has that been a challenge for you?
We've done well with drivers. Our drivers have referred other drivers. We have a driver referral program where they hire, we hire somebody and they stay here for a certain period of time. We'll give them $500 as a reward for helping us to recruit. We're still struggling with customer service people. We need some customer service people in here because our business is is growing very quickly. And, it's somebody who can be nice on the phone, answer emails, provide status of shipments, things like that, that it can be a grind. I mean, it's each individual call is not difficult, but when three phones ring at once, it can be stressful. So, so we're still working on that piece of it.
Yeah. And you mentioned EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, which we both belong to. Talk a little bit about kind of the role that has played for you in your development. You had been in the corporate world for 25 years and then start your own company. And then about 5 or 6 years into it, you join EO. How did that help with that particular growth stage with the company?
Yeah, so the Entrepreneurs Organization, particularly through Forum, and just gave me another set of eyes of people that were able to just size me up, give me candid experience shares for what they've been through, and just kind of keep me grounded. It was also helpful too to realize that, oh gee, they're worried about that too. I'm not like losing my mind. All my contacts in my previous life were corporate world people. So when I go to them and talk about a cash flow thing, they'd be like, well, why don't you talk to your CFO? And I'm like, I am the CFO.
Right.
So it's been great to just share stories and realize the world of an entrepreneur is very different than the world of working in the corporate world, you stay in your lane, and entrepreneur, you're in all the lanes,
right?
And need to be able to be educated and make guide the company as best you can. And whether you have a team member there who can do that decision for you, or you're the buck stops with you. So
yeah. And it looks like looking at your LinkedIn page here, you've gotten your MBA. You've gone and studied at Duke University, Fuqua School of Business, INSEAD. So you've kind of continued to educate. You also are involved as a strategic alliance partner chair. Yeah. What does all that do for you? Talk a little bit about the impact and why a busy entrepreneur would do those things.
Well, I just think, as a thirst for learning, to me, the day you stop learning is kind of the day you start withering away. I just think there's always something new you can learn or experiment with or try to improve either yourself personally or professionally, the top line of your business, the bottom line of your business. So I think that's one of the things my father just kind of, you just want to keep getting educated all the time. And so I think that's important. As far as being the strategic alliance partner chair, I felt like for all the good things I've gotten out of EO, I felt like that was where, as you called it, I could use one of my superpowers and help support the chapter by getting, because we got hurt, everybody's on Zoom during COVID. So if you're a sponsor, how do you really network on Zoom?
Yeah,
it's almost it's probably impossible. So we had a lot of rebuilding to do. And I felt like that was one of the ways I could give back to the chapter and give back to EO so we could do cool events in Philadelphia.
Yeah. I do want to ask about your son. 2018, your son Samuel took his life. Talk a little bit about your son and what that experience was like.
Yeah, Sam was a hard worker. He was working in restaurants in our town, Hellertown, where next door to where we live, trying to make money. He wanted to buy a car. He was going to Kutztown University, and we just. But I think he was also, in some respects, a typical teenage boy. He just doesn't want to talk about what's bothering him with his parents or even his friends. And, it's clear looking backwards, he was suffering from anxiety and depression. And, he had a lot of things going on in there. And he just didn't know how to, how to express it. And, that's a regret that, my wife and I have, that we couldn't have helped him to figure out how to, how to speak about that. But, on March 5th, 2018, he took his life. And, it's a, biggest event, negative event ever happened in my life. So,
Yeah.
We've been working, my wife and myself do work with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. My wife goes to colleges almost on a monthly basis, where they will host Out of Darkness walks. And Out of Darkness Walk is a fundraiser for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention,
Mm-hmm.
but it also gives her an opportunity to talk to young teenagers and young college students about, hey, you need, help is available. Be comfortable. It's hard, but be comfortable talking about it, because you can get help, whether it's just talking with sometimes just talking to a friend and listening is the most powerful thing somebody can do for somebody suffering from anxiety and depression. Just hearing their story and acknowledging it. But, some people need more help than that. They need counseling. Some maybe even need, medication. So,
Yeah.
So my wife's very active in that. And then I've been involved on the political front with getting the 988 phone number launched here in Pennsylvania. And so I call on politicians. 988 was put in place about a year and a half ago. So it's a functioning system, but it needs to get funded by, which is going to take each state to pass probably some sort of a tax on your phone bill or your cell phone bill in order to get that funded.
And the idea behind 988 is that the police and firefighters and first responders behind 911 aren't really equipped to be the ones to deal with mental health issues. And so 988 is something that either someone that's suicidal could call themselves, or I imagine family members could call in order to get that kind of specialized help.
That's exactly right. You'd have trained people on the other end of the line that could help somebody who's having a mental health crisis.
Yeah, I didn't even know about that it existed. So clearly, not that I know everything, but I mean, hopefully people will start to get the word out and be aware that resource is developing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know, for the parents out there, I'm a parent. Are there any particular signs that you would recommend for parents to look out for?
I think, a student keeping themselves isolated. I have a particular, which may be an age-related bias, but, I think parents have to be careful about a kid who's locked in his room all day, just on the phone, on texting on the phone or on the computer all day. I do think they need the socialization that I don't think is the same as being on the, texting back and forth,
Yeah.
or Snapchat, or, whatever, the TikTok videos.
Yeah.
The Social Dilemma was a fascinating movie on Netflix about the impact, particularly on teenage girls, about body image and some of the effects that social media can have negatively. And I think we need to talk more about that. So, and just I think family time with no electronics is important. I think that's how you get your kids to be talking and communicating about, about what's going on. They'll probably stage a strike at first if you impose this.
I found, so, with my 11-year-old, in order to get him to talk, I found what works for us is just finding what works for him. So, like if we can get him out of the house and get him to go on a walk and get his body moving, then he starts talking, he starts opening up more than he would if you sat on the edge of the bed next to him and tried to get him to open up.
Right.
And we like getting out on bikes and stuff like that as well. That works. Speaking of that sort of thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, so Kathy Dorgy introduced us, and you actually connected with her on a trip during lockdown, September 2020, relevant to the discussion about getting out, getting fresh air. Talk about that trip and the impact that had on you.
Yeah, so they, Kathy Doragi, and who else was there? Warren Rustand and Brian Burrow all put together this couples retreat. And so my wife and I went up to Red Horse Mountain Ranch in Idaho. And I remember I told my wife, I said, hey, do you want to go on a horseback riding trip with EO? She's like, yeah, I love horses. Then she starts getting the emails of homework to prepare. She's like, hey, what's going on here? I said, it's a couples retreat. We're going to be able to talk about our relationship. And we learned some things about each other, communication styles. Was one in particular that, it was like some little things in a marriage that can get in the way. And so we solve some of those issues and understand each other a lot better, having gone to that retreat. It was a fantastic experience, and I know they do that trip every year. So I'd encourage any EOers to figure out a way to get up there with your spouse.
I know
it's well worth the time.
I think I interviewed Brian a while back, and I think he mentioned it. So I think they are planning on doing it again, or they have it on the roadmap. We're almost out of time. I want to ask my gratitude question. So I'm a big fan of gratitude. I'm a big fan of expressing gratitude, especially for peers and contemporaries and others who've helped you along the way. Who would you want to just shout out and thank for helping you along the way?
I go back to I had a boss named Fred Chiralanza, and he was, so I had bosses that were kind of like the old school, we're just going to pound this into you. And Fred was the first guy who kind of listened to what I had to say. But he kind of turned some things around on me as far as, hey, well, why do you think that? And kind of challenged me too on, you're good, but you're not that good. And how are you going to get better? So he was a great part of my life. He challenged some of my assumptions that, looking back, were not correct or accurate, and knocked some of the chips off of my shoulder and helped allow me to grow as a person and get me to where I am today.
That's great. Blue Eagle Logistics is the name of the company. Andy, where can people go to connect with you or learn more about the work that you do, and learn more also about the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, if I said that correctly?
Yeah. So, blueeaglelogistics.com is our webpage. I am also on LinkedIn. That's my preferred social media channel. And then AFSP.org has a ton of resources related to suicide prevention and how to get help or how to get help for others. And it's a very good resource.
Andy, thanks so much for coming here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.